Surprise yourself with the all-new 252 Suzuki range at Hugo Luna Motors. Suzuki's Japanese quality is ready to stand out and make you feel proud every time you drive. Whether it's the zippy Swift or the adventure-ready S-Cross, enjoy 0% finance, handy tech, safety features and great value as standard. All wrapped in the fun and efficiency of a hybrid. The only tough part? Choosing which car to drive. Visit HugoLunaMotors.ie today, where we're not just different, we're good different. Finance subject to status, terms and conditions apply.
Country Life on Midlands 103. Brought to you by W. Orshaw, Burlington Business Park, Tullamore. Supplier of New Holland's tractors in the Midlands. worshaw.ie.
And you're very welcome to Country Life here on Midlands 103. It's MJ Clery with you until 8 p.m. this evening, bringing you the latest from the Midlands and further afield from the worlds of agriculture, food and agri-business. Now, thank you all for joining me this evening. As always, what a lovely few days we're after having today in particular. What a great day today was. And it's high pressure into next week, 15, 16 degrees I see here for the next few days. So exactly what we're looking for at this time of the year, and long may it last. Now, we are going to be talking about the budget this evening in lots of different guises. As we know, Budget 2026 was launched yesterday. In a moment, Philip O'Connor from IFAC is going to be giving me a rundown of what it means for you as a farmer, and also in relation to the tax you're going to be paying for next year. We will also be staying on the topic of the budget with Macra. They're not happy about it in relation to generational renewal. We're going to find out why as their president, Josephine O'Neill, joins me later here on the programme. Also, another area of agriculture that needs an injection of capital is that of forestry. While they did get an additional €5 million, how will forestry owners access this? Pádraig Egan from the forestry group SIFA will join me later to chat about this additional money and whether it will help the forestry industry, which is still reeling as a result of Storm Owen. I know farmers in the areas of tillage and sheep and beef have long forgotten about Storm Owen, but unfortunately forestry owners have not. And again, this is one of the reasons for this extra money in the budget yesterday. Also this evening we have news on a Teagasc information meeting. It's taking place tomorrow week in the Bloomfield House Hotel, and it's what you need to do on your farm in relation to compliance with the Department of Agriculture rules. So do you need soil samples? What do you do with your fertiliser plan? When do you need it for? These are all the topics up for discussion. So we have Eilish Burke and we have Emer Tobin from Teagasc Mullingar. They're going to join me in studio in about 10 minutes time to chat about these issues and a little more. Now, text me on 083 30 10 103. Be happy to put anything to our guests here over the course of the hour. And as I said, the budget is taking centre stage on this evening's programme. And we're going to run through the main topics of now with Philip O'Connor, Head of Farm Support at IFAC, joining me on the line. Philip, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
Thanks for having me, MJ.
You're more than welcome, Philip. Look, we've lots to get through, lots of different areas. The headline is that an additional €170 million has been added to the Department of Agriculture's coffers, bringing funding to just over $2.3 billion. So look, this sounds good from the outset, but I suppose the devil's in the detail. Philip, what exactly would we say in relation to this budget?
God, I'd hate to use the word, but probably underwhelming is a little bit of it. And depends what way you look at it. So if you want to look at it negatively, you would say there hasn't been any major gains in the sense of they've extended a lot of the schemes like acres, more money into TAMS. They've given extra money into tillage incentive scheme and tillage support scheme, but we haven't quite got the detail where that money's going to go. The estimation is maybe 25-30 million is going to go through the support and tillage farmers, but when you divide that across all the tillage farmers and landed in tillage, it's not a huge amount of money. And there is definitely more money going towards TB eradication. But again, we haven't quite got the finer detail how that's going to be used. So is there any real new schemes? No. But have we lost any schemes? No. So that's what I mean. You could look at it as in it's positive, as in we kept all the schemes, and it's kind of negative that there hasn't been anything particularly new in it either.
Yeah, let's have a little pop down through a few of the headlines, and we'll just see where some money is going to go. So as you said, bovine TB, increased budget allocation of 85 million for TB in 2026. This is now a total budget of 157 million. I see the ICSA have a press release out, and they're saying the additional 85 million needs to go on the outdated compensation caps, 3,000 for commercial animals, 5,000 for pedigree animals. This needs to be increased, almost doubled, the ICSA are saying. But interestingly on this, Philip, I read earlier that with the new TB plan for next year, that the amount of reactors are going to increase exponentially. So there may not even be enough money to cover the potential reactors that there will be in next year's plan, even with this additional 85 million. So we mightn't even have enough in the coffers. Now, again, we're trying to look into the future there, but that is what is hypothesised.
Yeah, we're seeing TV. Like, I mean, if I was sitting here talking to you probably 3 years ago, probably wouldn't have mentioned this from a financial point of view. It was always TV was there, obviously, but definitely has come across our radar what we're doing with our farmers and our accounts as regards something that's a lot more prevalent. And it's we're seeing it in two aspects when we're dealing with our clients. We're seeing probably more of clients saying they've got TB, and it's quite a short, sharp outbreak, and it's within the financial year. It's huge financial issue, if you know what I mean. As regards, it's stressful on the farm, but it's in and out reasonably quickly. But we are definitely seeing some more longer endemic outbreaks of TB where it's year in, year out, or you're free a year and then you're locked up again. And definitely that does place huge financial pressures on farms. And we do see almost that difference between a short, sharp outbreak that's cleared quite quickly and you're back to trading as normal versus a number of farmers, an increasing number of farmers who seem to be stuck perpetually in TB, or they're out of TB for a year and then they're back into it again. And that's definitely, the compensation does have issues in those particular herds, if you know what I mean, because if you think of it, even from some of the areas I work in with QB Dairy, it's like they're continuously in expansion mode. They're continuously rearing young stock to come in because they're continuously losing stock out the other end through TB.
Yeah, so look, I suppose it is one. I don't think it's going to go away. Well, it hasn't gone away since the 1960s.
No,
so
it's a hot topic.
It's not going to go away, and it's going to get hotter, I think, next year.
Yeah.
You alluded to the tillage sector there also, Philip, and obviously, look, big push on tillage farmers at the moment, really, really under pressure, especially coming into the back end of the year with bills to be paid. And as you said, look, there's 50 million forward, 20 million, I believe. Look, these figures are kind of up now, but 20 million, I believe, is ongoing. 30 million is the support scheme, but then we don't know what this support scheme is going to be. And as you say, 30 million divided by all the tillage farmers in the country, it's not going to amount to a fortune.
No. And like, I mean, tillage farmers had a tough year this year. Like, I mean, let's be honest, you've had lots of speakers on in the recent weeks and months about the positivity around beef prices, sheep prices, milk prices. We did good spring, if you know what I mean. And the tillage sector had none of it. Like, I mean, and while they had good growing seasons and they got crops in well last spring and last autumn for the winter crops, just the price never lifted at all. Like, I mean, we're talking about green barley prices in around the 190, 195, like, and you're talking about for the average tillage farmer, it could be virtually break even, maybe a little bit more than break even on owned land, but on rented land. And a lot of tillage farming in this country is on rented or leased land. You can't see how the sums can add up.
Yeah, unfortunately. So we also looked at TAMS, I should say. I was going to say tillage farming there, TAMS, and there's an increased 88 million, according to the department, in relation to TAMS funding. And obviously, look, capital investment for TAMS is going to be important for the nitrates derogation as well. With your own clients, Philip, what are you seeing in relation to spending in 2025 when it comes to tanks and storage? Is there much of it going on?
There is, like, I suppose there's definitely an increase in the usage and the grants, and the figures are showing that, and the revenue are showing it as well through the VAT. But that's part of inflation because the cost of building the tanks. So the amount of people who are actually doing work, I don't think has exponentially changed. But I will say we have seen with our own clients and amongst the farmer, definitely at the ploughing match, when we're up there meeting people, a lot more positivity around it. And that's based off a strong year financially for the dairy and the beef sectors and the sheep sectors. But there is definitely a little holdback on the dairy sector of making any significant spends until we have a little bit more certainty about the nitrates. So if you're asking me my opinion on where we'll be with TAMS next year and the government giving the extra money, if we get a reasonable nitrates directive that we have a little bit more certainty, definitely out to 5 years, maybe hopefully longer. Yes, I do think dairy farmers will build the said tanks that they need to build.
We move on to generational renewal, and I am going to be speaking about this in a little bit more detail with Josephine O'Neill from Mockra shortly. However, just looking at it, the capital allowances that are normally there, AgriLeaf, Young Trained Farmer Stamp Duty and the CGT restructuring supports, they're all the same and they all stay the same. Do they ever change? Philip, we often do the budget every year in the programme. Is there ever any movement on those?
The thresholds did change a few years ago. Like, we're not back to where, like, pre-boom times, as they say, there was up to 500,000. So it's over 400,000 now at the moment. So definitely I would view the tax measures the government did as probably a positive, that they didn't cut them, if you know what I mean. So that because there was a look at agricultural relief last year that was in our opinion, IFAC was probably a slightly retrograde step, because it was going to make it more complicated, and the last thing we need is more complicated taxes. So the government has rolled back that decision on how agri-relief is applied, because it's a very important relief for passing land to the next generation. So I would probably view the tax measures as a positive, as in they weren't changed and they're kept. If you were going to be a little bit hypercritical on it, you could say maybe they should have increased the thresholds a bit, keep in line with inflation. We all know the prices of land are going across the country, if you know what I mean. So the thresholds are not keeping up with the rising values of land. And the old adage of farming applies, it's asset rich, cash poor. Like, so the thresholds are ungiven. I would have liked to have seen an extra few euros added to the thresholds, but look, I'm not going to complain majorly over it, if you know what I mean, that they kept all the reliefs. They didn't particularly try and change them majorly. I would have liked to have seen, though, from the Department of Agri something going towards helping generational renewal and young farmers as regards, like they do the succession farm grant for 3,000 and the collaborative farming grant of 1,500, that maybe they could have done a little bit more around that and incentivising farmers a little bit more to get professional advice and help and look in these things. But I'm sure you'll get very good opinions from that from Mockra, your Mockra contributor, when she's talking later. But would it be nice if they did something towards that? Yeah, no, I agree on that, especially given the that huge report on generational renewal which came out at the ploughing. It was putting figures out there, 25,000 for the transferor and the transferee, big numbers to try and get things moving, and we're a million miles off any of those. Well, they're not in existence at all. Just on the beef schemes and the sheep schemes, look, again, ICSA, we're looking for more money. They're staying as they are, but we're a little bit away towards the 300 per suckler cow and 35 per ewe is what we're looking for in the ICSA. We're still falling short of those, but it's where we were essentially. It is, and as I said at the start of the programme when we were chatting, is that a positive or negative? If it's a negative, we didn't get more, but it's a positive that it didn't get cut. It's probably the story of the budget in every sector, really. Like, I mean, there was only one sector that got a positive, and that was the hospitality region, the hairdressers, that got the reduction on the VAT. There was no other sector of the economy that you could really say that would look at this budget and go, wow, we've got something here. Like, and like looking at the papers and listening to commentary today, yeah, the commentary has been very similar to what I said to you around the farming, is in, yeah, we're not overly excited, but I suppose we didn't get cuts. Lastly, so I'm not quite sure how you would view that as a positive. Yeah, no, I suppose. Look, you're saying it as it is, Philip. It kind of is. It is what it is. It's as we were. The last one is income tax. The bane of all our lives. It's now the 8th of October, and as an IFAC representative, the busiest time of the year for yourselves. I know late nights, early mornings. There couldn't be enough hours in the day for you at the moment for the next few weeks. But no change in income tax, I believe. That's correct, isn't it, Philip? There's not, no, all income tax thresholds are the same, the reliefs are all the same, the 20%, the 40%, the filing dates, they're all the same. But I would say in tax, though, what is different this year is we're coming out of like, if you think about it from especially the livestock sector, which is beef, sheep and dairy, they're coming out of a 24-year that had okay profits. Dairy profits are quite strong. Sheep and tillage, sheep and beef were okay. But they're after going into a 25-year that definitely is rising. And if you look where we're going into 26, particularly in the dairy, we could have a possibility of falling profits. which means your tax bill for 25, you really need to know what your tax bill for this year is going to be, which will be due next year. So I'll be recommending people when they're going in doing their tax return, which is predominantly looking at the preceding year, which is 24, that they need to talk to their accountants about 25 and where do they feel that figure is going to land. And if it's higher than 24 and there's a potentially higher tax liability, that you're planning for that to be paid in 2026, rather than this time next year you're getting landed with a large tax bill from 2025. So I'd be advising your listeners when they're going into the doing their tax return for the 2024 year that they talk about 25.
Yeah, no, it's good advice as always, Philip. And I think everyone always has good intentions to do it, and then the year starts slipping away. So it is an important one. If we all could, myself included, really make a concerted effort for it in early 2026. Philip, I'm going to say many thanks for joining me here on the programme, and we'll speak to you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MJ. Appreciate being on.
Philip Connor there, Head of Farm Support at IFAC, and the overarching theme from the budget is, as you were, really, not much in it. A few different areas are, look, the tillage farmers, the 30 million, but we will see on that. We'll see where it lands, and we'll do a little bit more on that when we have a bit more information on it. Now, I'm going to shoot to a break. Look, we're going to be covering more budget areas, as I said, forestry, generational renewal, a little bit later on the programme. But after the break, I'm going to be speaking to Eilish Burke and Emer Tobin from Teagasc Mullingar about an information meeting which they have coming up tomorrow week, Thursday, 16th of October in the Bloomfield House Hotel. So stay tuned for that.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
With W.R. Shaw, family owned and serving the Midlands since 1982, we're Ireland's largest independent agri-dealer, specialising in New Holland tractors and parts. With over 40 years' experience, we provide top quality sales, service and support. Visit W.R. Shaw in Tullamore and Carlow or online at wrshaw.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here on Midlands 103. Now we're moving on to an information meeting. It's taking place next Thursday, 16th of October. It's in the Bloomfield House Hotel and it is in Mullingar. And as I am changing around my board here because I need to get some microphones because I have two people in the studio. And in the studio I have Eilish Burke and I also have Emer Tobin. Ladies, many thanks for joining me here in the studio this evening.
No problem, MJ. Thanks for having us, MJ. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Now, you have a big evening coming up, as we said, tomorrow week, Thursday, 16th of October. We're going to run through all the headings in just a moment. But, Emer, you're going to give us a little bit of an overview for our listeners. What exactly is occurring here?
Yeah, I am indeed. So, look, we have a bit of work done on this. So, we are having an information meeting on regulation updates. And as you said there, it's in the Bloomfield House Hotel outside Mullingar. And the doors are open there at 7 o'clock. But look, the speakers are kicking off there at 7:30. So, look, it's important to be there on time. And we have a number of topics to run through as well.
Excellent stuff. And when we hear about regulations and when we hear about rules, we get a little bit worried because we think the Department of Agriculture are going to be out and they're going to be after us. So we have to be conscious of this. But we also have to ensure when it comes to this, Eilish, that we don't need to be afraid about any of this stuff either. Like your Teagasc advisor or your personal advisor is there. They know the answers to all these things. It's just a matter of getting out ahead of them and understanding essentially what's occurring.
Exactly. So, as you said there, MJ, there's no need to fear this stuff at all. Your advisors are there to help you with all these topics. So, some of the topics that we'll be guiding and helping farmers with on the night are the conditionality requirements. So, farmers will be probably more familiar with this as what was previously called the cross compliance. So, a lot of topics actually falls underneath this heading or this umbrella, such as habitat management, including hedgerows. And as we know, the hedge cutting season is currently open at the moment. So we'll be going through some kind of management practices and best practices in terms of managing both hedgerows and, I suppose, habitat for all things biodiversity. So there's a lot to be picked up and gained there from that. Also falling underneath the conditionality requirements is the nitrates, including spreading dates for chemical and organic manures. We also have stocking rates on farms and the different nitrates requirements based on your stocking rate. So this is an area that has seen a lot of change, I suppose, since 2022. So it's good for farmers to get a refresher on this and see what each of the changes or the requirements means specifically to their own farm and what they're doing at home themselves.
Yeah, no, 100%. And as you say, things have changed a lot over the last while, so it is important to get out in front of these things, ask your advisor, and to seek lots of help in relation to it. Emer, an area you're going to be speaking about on the night, and that's the whole area of fertiliser plans and or soil samples. I suppose they go hand in hand. Tell us a little bit about that, please, Emer.
Yeah, certainly. So you know yourself, MJ, over the last number of years, there has been a lot of confusion there with fertiliser. Can I spread this? Can I spread this? What is the fertiliser database? You know, a number of different questions coming in there from a range of clients there. So I suppose the first thing to mention is nutrient management plan. What's that? So that's a huge thing now. A lot of farmers there would spread phosphorus, and they might know if they're allowed to spread phosphorus. So the idea of a nutrient management plan or your fertiliser plan there is to see if you're allowed to spread this phosphorus, and if you're in your limits, essentially.
And in relation to that, Emer, so we're talking about fertiliser plans. Look, they're going to base off our soil samples. Let's start for maybe a farmer who didn't do this last year, should have maybe done it, got away from it, whatnot. Soil samples, when is the best time to take a soil sample? What's your recommendation?
Yeah, so the best time to take your soil sample will be around Christmas time, or January. And the reason being is you're not spreading slurry at that time of year, and you're not spreading fertiliser. And when you take a soil sample, it gives the most accurate results. So your slurry or your fertiliser is not skewing the results. It's not misinterpreting, essentially.
And your fertiliser plan, then this is where maybe farmers might get a little bit perturbed, might be wondering, should I spread this, should I not spread this? I'm not sure. Like if you are a Teagasc client, you can get your Teagasc advisor to tell you essentially what you can spread. That is correct, isn't it? Farmers need to just go into their Teagasc advisor, ask for that. I think you have an additional cost for it, but it takes out the guesswork.
It does, yeah. And one of the great things about the nutrient management plan is you can get a map from it, and it shows you what part of your farm may be low in lime, what part of your farm do you need to increase a bit of phosphorus, and what part has enough, and you're not essentially spreading fertiliser for the sake of it. You know, you're not wasting it as such. So it's great, and it keys inefficiencies on a farm.
Yeah, and I suppose, Emer, it is important to dwell on that for a moment, in that we are talking about farming in a more environmentally sustainable manner, and spreading unwanted fertiliser obviously goes against that. But there is a great cost element there. As we know, fertiliser very expensive over the last couple of years. So as you say, when you have your nutrient management plan, it shows you where you shouldn't spread whatever the case may be it 18, 6, 12 or whatever it might be, that you just don't need it there. And again, there's going to be a cost saving to that. So that's an important one to get across.
It is, of course, yeah. Especially when you have these limits, it's important to utilise the fertiliser you are allowed to buy and use it properly and get the most that you can from the fertiliser coming onto the farm.
Absolutely. Eilish, going to move back across to you for a moment. Water quality, if we had maybe, what would I say, €5 every time we spoke about water quality over the last few years in the programme, we would have enough for a very good weekend away anyway, I would say. Maybe not enough to retire, but water quality is just massive. We're hearing it all the time, and obviously as a result of our upcoming derogation negotiations, water quality is at the forefront of people's minds. Now, best practice and what we can do as farmers to help water quality on our farms. A lot of farmers might say to themselves, look, this isn't going to affect me. I'm not a larger dairy farmer. I'm just a small-time beef farmer. Look, I'm not going to make any difference to it. But that's not really the case, Eilish. Sure it's not. Yeah,
no. So I suppose, as you rightly said there, MJ, water quality is the hot topic at the moment, and rightly so. And we all have a part to play in water quality and improving it. And I suppose whether you're an intensive or an extensive farmer, we can all contribute to this area. And again, it's just reminding people about, for example, buffer strips along water courses. It's a common question we sometimes get asked, and for both chemical and organic manures. So, for example, stuff that we will be discussing on the night is you cannot spread organic manures, for example, within 5 metres of surface waters. But this also extends to 10 metres for the first and last 2 weeks of the spreading season. So I suppose this is down to obvious reasons. Land is getting wetter, travelability on the land, and also there's an increase as land is getting wetter and we're having more rainfall at those first and last 2 weeks. there's a greater chance of leaching or, leaching into water courses. So it's to try and minimise all of these risks. So it's so that we can all become aware of them. Also, you can't spread chemical fertiliser within 2 to 3 metres of surface waters. And this is something, I suppose we'll be going into greater detail on the night with examples of all of this. And I suppose in Westmeath, we have, we've a great story to tell on water quality, as the Dysart catchment recently won Ireland's Greenest Community Award for water quality improvement. So, there's very much positives there that farmers are already doing, and they're being acknowledged. So it's important to highlight that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Really important to highlight that. And as you say, look, there's so many rules there, so many different things. This is why an information evening like this is so important. Emer, I'm going to pop back over to yourself. I'm going to let you close it out and just give a little push there on why people need to attend next week.
Yeah, so look, this is a free event and it's open to clients and non-clients, and everyone is welcome. As I said, it's in the Bloomfield House Hotel. Doors are open at 7 o'clock, but it is kicking off at 7:30, so make sure you're there on time. We will have tea and coffee at the end to mingle around there, and the room will be open to questions, and there is a chance there to talk to advisors on a one-to-one basis there if you don't feel comfortable asking a whole group of audience there. So please feel free to come, and we hope to see you there next week.
Super duper. Guys, I'm going to say many thanks for popping into us this evening. And look, no doubt you're going to be busy ladies on Thursday, 16th of October. Emer and Eilish, many thanks for joining me here in studio.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
You're more than welcome, guys. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go really quickly to a break because I have Josephine O'Neill from Macra. She's coming on with us after. She's going to be speaking to us about generational renewal and how Macra are not happy with what occurred in Budget 2026 yesterday. So stay tuned.
Fall in love with 252 exclusive offers on the Citroën range at Hugo Luna Motors today. Explore our impressive collection of Citroën cars and vans, where advanced comfort, style, safety and reliability all come together. Order your 252 today and take advantage of low-rate finance, a €500 deposit contribution and avail of a free home charger. Book your test drive today at hugolunamotors.ie. Citroën, for everyone, like no one.
Citroën. Country Life on Midlands 103.
Brought to you by W.R. Shaw, where New Holland isn't just a brand, it's our passion. For over 40 years, we've been Ireland's trusted name for New Holland tractors, parts and farm machinery. Whether you need new, used or ex-hire tractors, we've got you covered. wrshaw.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here on Midlands 103. Now, back to the budget. And we have Josephine O'Neill, President of Macra, joining us on the line. Josephine, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
Thanks for having me on this evening, MJ.
You're more than welcome, Josephine. Look, generational renewal, as we know, big one in the farming media at the moment, and especially if you're a member of Macra. How would you describe Budget 2026 from a young farmer's perspective?
Well, I suppose when you mention generation renewal there, MJ, I'll start by saying in terms of generation renewal, we would be incredibly disappointed and frustrated by the lack of delivery of concrete measures from our government to support generation renewal. It's something that we have been lobbying all summer for. We have been asking for the publication of the report from the Commission on Generation Renewal, which we did eventually see, but it was too little too late, because we can see that none of the recommendations that were outlined in that report actually came to fruition in this budget. And not just that, any of our key asks, like the delivery of a succession scheme, €100,000 support for the land mobility service, things like that we are calling on for decades, but especially in our lobbying efforts over the summer, were not recognised by our government, and as a result there was no financial incentives put in place, there was no support, no concrete measures. So in terms of generation renewal, we as an organisation will be incredibly disappointed and frustrated. I know there was some bonuses that we do take, and there was like the extension of the tax relief that do support family farm planning, and are recognised and welcomed. The extension of those until 2029 does provide some degree of certainty, and the likes of the extra funding allocated to the National Broadband Plan is welcome as well, to help support young farmers who are adopting new technologies, and also for young people who may be living and working in rural Ireland. But I suppose on the whole, yesterday's budget was not a budget that we as an organisation representing young farmers and young people were overly celebrating.
Do you feel the government are a little short-sighted on this, Josephine, in that we know the age demographic farmer is 59 years old, and it is something that we are trying to encourage the younger generation into, and that by not giving financial assistance to this is really just, I don't even know if it's kicking the can down the line. Is it just ignoring this huge issue that's in front of them at the moment?
I think you took the words right out of my mouth there, MJ, when you say kicking the can down the road. We saw during the summer the announcement of that report from the Commission on Generation Renewal, and I suppose we were filled with a certain amount of hope that this was actually the time that our government would deliver for us, for our young farmers. And I know you mentioned the average age of a farmer there being 59, but if we look at the other side of it, only 4.3% of farmers are under the age of 35, and this isn't something that we can put on the long finger any longer, because if we continue to look at our government's inaction and lack of support for young farmers, we won't have young farmers there anymore, and it's now we need those supports. So it is disappointing to see that we don't know now when we're going to see action. We don't know what they're going to do to support us, and as an organisation that does leave a disappointed taste in our mouth.
The report, Josephine, on the Commission on Generational Renewal, it was a massive document. I think it could have been 98 pages. I remember having a flick down through it. But a few of the big take-home ones were, I think it was a payment of €25,000 to the successor, and was there another payment then to the person that was going to transfer over the land? There was a couple of larger payments. I can't think of the exact particulars off the top of my head, but did you feel that was along the right lines of what was needed or what is needed in relation to moving farmland from one generation to the next?
Very much so. There were some recommendations there that were very positive. When you mentioned the likes of the 25,000, yes, there was 25,000 mentioned in that for a young farmer establishment fund, and Ireland is the only country in Ireland that doesn't have installation aid from our CAP, which is, I suppose, a financial startup capital to support our young farmers, which is incredibly needed. You know how expensive it is to get into farming and to have a career in farming. So that startup capital is very much needed. So to see provision for that is very much welcome. Now, I suppose 25,000, that would have been the amount that would have been paid when installation aid was last in Ireland. And when you consider inflation and the rising cost of everything at the moment, I suppose we would have liked to see more money, but anything is a welcome start. And you did mention that the older farmer who is in the process of transferring, there is a generation renewal grant there, there is support there, and that's something that we in MACRA as an organisation recognise and welcome too, because we have always been saying that succession needs to support both the older farmer as they transfer the managerial position to the younger farmer. So support for both to ensure that that farm can be economically viable to support both as the transition happens is incredibly important.
What was the figure for the transferor in the report, Josephine? Was it a flat figure like the €25,000, or did it depend on the holding?
Off the top of my head, MJ, I'm not 100% certain, and I suppose it is important for us to remember that these are only recommendations, so what actually ends up happening could be slightly or a lot different to what's written in that report.
And it will depend, I suppose, on what's in the coffers as well. Look, I did talk to Minister Martin Hayden at the ploughing, and I mentioned that report to him, and he did say that the budget was the budget for this coming year. So I suppose the hope is something will be done in 2027, budget 2027. But as of budget 2026, MACRA and Affirm are not happy, it's fair to say. Josephine, yes?
That's fair to say, yes, MJ.
Many thanks for joining me this evening, Josephine. We'll speak to you again on the programme.
Thank you so much for having me, MJ.
Josephine O'Neill there, President of MACRA and Affirm. And as we say, MACRA not happy with the conditions in this year's budget, budget 2026. And that report was published at the ploughing. Ploughing is mid-September, as we know, about 3 weeks ago in relation to that and the budget. So, look, it was unlikely any of those recommendations were going to be put in place for budget 2026. But even when we're speaking about those figures, €25,000 for a young farmer establishment fund, like if you are taking over a farm, unless you're taking over a well-established farm with buildings, machinery, stock as well, to be honest, unless you're getting most of it handed over to you, €25,000 isn't going to go too far in today's climate in relation to establishing any sort of a business. I don't know what that figure would want to be, but the important thing that Josephine said there as well, and it is an important one on generational renewal, is that the generation who are transferring over the farm, they also have to be sorted out financially as well, and it has to be ensured that they are looked after in older years. And I suppose that's the reason a lot of farms aren't transferred over, and the average age is 59, and there's only 4.3% under 35, because it's a financial thing. We're only getting into a stage now of larger scale dairy farms and whatnot that can actually finance a transfer over and have some money left over then for the transfer as well. So look, I suppose we need state help in this. That's the reality of it, and that's what MACRA are pushing. Now, coming up after the break, I'm going to be talking about forestry. I have Pádraig Egan from SIFA, and he's going to be talking about the extra 5 million that has been put into the coffers for forestry. It brings funding up from 88 to 93 million, but this 5 million, how are you going to get your hands on it if you are a forest owner? That is the question we're going to be asking Pádraig in just a moment. I doubt he knows the answer yet, because it's only announced as of yesterday, but where do SIFA want to see this money going as well is the question, so stay tuned for that.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
With W.R. Shaw. Looking for the best in farm machinery? We've been supplying top quality New Holland tractors and parts and providing service since 1982. Our expert team is here to keep your farm running smoothly, with branches in Tullamore and Carlow. Visit wrshaw.ie today.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here in Midlands 103, and we are sticking on budget 2026, but it's the area of forestry we're talking about now for the next few minutes, and we have Offaly man from Doon, Pádraig Egan, on the line. Pádraig is joining us with the organisation SIFA, the forestry organisation SIFA. Pádraig, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
Good evening, MJ. How are you?
We're good, Pádraig, and I'm looking here at all of this information I'm after getting from the Department of Agriculture yesterday, and they're after breaking open the piggy bank according to themselves, but I suppose the devil is in the detail. But forestry, additional 5 million budget for forestry, it says, moving from 88 million up to 93 million. And this will include a forestry reconstitution scheme for those affected by wind-blown sites. Now, Pádraig, for people who are not involved in forestry, Storm Owen is a distant memory, but for people involved in forestry, unfortunately, it's not. Can you tell us a little bit about this wind-blown sites in Storm Owen? What's happening with forestry owners at the moment?
Yeah, well, look, first of all, the 5 million, which is about 6% of an increase in the forestry budget, is very welcome. And in fairness, I think I spoke to you before about this, but Minister Healy-Rae and Minister Hayden at the Plough told us that they were going to give an increase for the damage that was done by Storm Owen. And, you know, they have to be commended for that because, as you know, I was listening to your programme, most other sectors didn't get anything, you know, beef or sheep or any of them. So that shows commitment from Minister Healy-Rae, and he has to be commended for it. So, Storm Owen, to put it in context, in Ireland, annually, we harvest about 4 million cubes of timber every year. When Storm Owen came last, when was it, end of January, early February, in one night, in the Midlands, they hit the northwest, up into the northwest predominantly, there was 12 million cubes of timber put on the ground in one storm. So that's 3 years harvesting put on the ground in one night. Now, you can imagine all that coming on the market, and all, not necessarily coming on the market, but coming on the ground, and all has to be sorted out. And then, of course, there's a replanting, and obviously when a big glut of something comes, you know, demand and supply comes on the market together, it brings down the price. So forest owners are in a hard spot. If they weren't in a hard spot before that, they're in a harder spot now, especially the people that's coming out of the, you know, at the, we call it the back end of it, you know, at the end of the life cycle, when the real payday should be coming for them for their long-term commitment. And now they're in a situation where they have to clear the forestry, and because of different things, you know, it's going to be very difficult to make it viable. And fairness to Minister Healy-Rae, like, you know, he wasn't a half an hour in the job when Storm Owen hit, and he's up task force, and, you know, task force are great, and people say they're kind of a talking shop, but in fairness, this wasn't, and he's put all the mechanisms in place, and one of the key things he done was, if you had a tinning licence, he stepped that up to a clear fella if you're in Storm Owen, and he gave a serious commitment to get licences through, and he's working hard on that. And in fairness, it is working. So this 5 million, I believe, is the first stepping stone towards grant aid and the replanting of the people that's damaged by Storm Owen.
Yeah.
And I think if he does it every year, it'd be great for the next couple of years.
And in relation to that, obviously, look, the people need grant aid to replant. That's amount then of timber that's on the ground, the 12 million cubes, as you alluded to there, Park. What's happening with that at the moment? Like, presumably that can't be got to by the amount of forestry companies there are in the country. I presume a lot of it's just lying there waiting, I suppose.
Well, yeah, that's the big thing. Now, in fairness, the 12 million, a large portion of that has Quilches, so that's the state forestry. They're working through that themselves, and the private industry is working through it. And there is a lot of stuff being harvested. You know, Bournemouth who take the pulp in, the mills are really working hard to get the timber in, and timber is stockpiling on the road. But it's moving, and it's moving at a good pace. But it has, you're right, it has a long ways to go. And I suppose I can't really answer that question until 12 months' time. So if you take, maybe the end of 26, which will be about the guts of a year and a half out from the storm, then you're getting into this serious part of it. The timber is 12, 18 months on the ground, and it's, you want to be moving at that stage. Now, there is, in certain situations, timber lying in the ground. Wind blow by its nature with Sitka, especially in the northwest, it lies over. The root system might still have a bit of feed coming up through the tree, so that might help it. But look, it's a serious problem. And to answer your question, will it all be salvaged? It's hard to see it all being salvaged, but the industry is working hard to do the best they can to get it salvaged for the forest owner, and they have to be considered here. And that's why we need this grant aid, because there's extra costs involved, of course, when you get, a big sudden attack at this that you have to get through. So there's extra costs on the landowner or the forest owner, and that's why, in fairness to Minister Healy-Rae, he's coming with this, what we call reconstitutional grant.
Yeah, and basically, I suppose, from listening to you, Pádraig, and obviously very, very challenging for anyone that went through this, and it's such a financial loss as well after Ash dieback, after the licensing issues previously, after all the myriad of issues in forestry. Then Storm Owen comes along as well. It's so tough. But really, what's needed then is grant aid to go back in and replant this area that's been knocked over by Storm Owen. Essentially, you need financial assistance to do this, I'm guessing. Yeah,
that's true. Because, as you know, in the first day you plant, you get grant aid to plant, and then you get your premiums for so many years. And then once that's, I suppose, given for the commitment the landowner is given to forestry, because it's a long cycle. And then when you clear fell, that's when you get the real benefits. And then you go back in at your own cost after that for replanting. And it's a system that works really well for 99% of people. And, now, because of this storm, it's a one in, hopefully a one in a lifetime event. These cohort of people, they need help, and we have to give them help. And in fairness, I'll say it again, in fairness to Minister Healy-Rae, and backed up by Minister Hayden, you spoke to him yourself at the ploughing, they gave a commitment, and they're delivering on it at the moment, and we need them. But we have to hold them to the fire as well all the time. With politicians, we have to keep the pressure on them. And us in SIFA, we represent, I suppose, 90% of private forest owners. And what I mean by that is private forest owners aren't a member of SIFA, but the members of SIFA are all the forestry companies and the biggest nursery in the country, Nuns Hardy. And all the companies in there that look after the private clients. If you add all them up, we would be, looking after 90% of the private forest owners in Ireland. So we know they're ringing us. We know what's happening.
Well, see, you know what's happening on the ground. Pádraig, I want to say many thanks for joining us here on the programme. I always enjoy chatting to you, Pádraig, because what you do is you break down forestry first in a very straightforward manner. A lot of us aren't involved in it, and we can understand the issues very clearly after speaking to you. So many thanks for joining us, Pádraig. We'll speak to you again here on the programme.
Okay, MJ, thank you. Bye-bye.
Pádraig Egan there from SIFA, and as Pádraig said, look, it's good news. It's welcome. That €5 million is welcome. Minister Healy-Rae is doing good work in relation to forestry, and it is increasing this year on last year with a view to it increasing again next year. But what's needed also is just grant aid for people who suffered under Storm Owen. And as I said to Pádraig earlier, I was speaking to him, I said, be it beef, sheep, tillage farmers have forgotten about Storm Owen. It came and went, and we didn't think much of it. Power maybe went for a while. But for forest owners, a totally different ballgame. And it was one of those freak events that has massive financial fallout. So good to see the Department of Agriculture putting some money there, and hopefully it is the start of more to come. Now, that is it for this evening's programme. I would like to thank all my guests here over the course of the hour. It was a budget-heavy programme this evening, but obviously biggest fiscal day in the government year, and a big knock-on effect for agriculture. Philip O'Connor from IFAC gave us a rundown at the start where he kind of said, look, it's as you were for most things. Some extra money here for tillage, a little bit for forestry as well. Beef and sheep stayed the same, but across the board, more or less as you were. The ladies, Eilish Burke and Emer Tobin, came in from Teagasc and Mullingar, and that event is taking place on Thursday week, all about what you need to do on your farm in 2026. We also spoke to Macra President Josephine O'Neill, and Macra are not happy with the lack of funding for generational renewal in budget 2026. No money at all there, just the tax reliefs are continuing as they were. And lastly, Pádraig Egan from CIFA, who just spoke to us there, welcoming the €5 million additional money, but more money needed for grant aid to replant if you were struck by Storm Owen. That is it for this evening's programme. I will speak to you in 7 days' time. As always, shows repeated on Sunday morning at 7 a.m. through to 8 a.m. And you can get us wherever you get your podcasts. If you type in MJ space Clery, Clery, we will pop up and you can listen at your leisure. I will be back in 7 days' time. Joe Cooney is here next with Country Roads. So I'll say good night. We'll speak to you in a week.